I don't know how far in the story I got before I dropped out, but essentially I was unable to get the help finding the screw I needed at the big box retailer. And I jumped in my car, went to the local hardware store. The sales guy that I've worked with there before gave him the information. He immediately looked it up, got me the screw I needed, and I was on my way. I share that story because it really reminds me of search. If you think about search, search is the sales associate in a retail store. I don't care if you're a B2B or a B2C business. If you have a need of the type that I described and you're looking for something specific, it's really the sales associate in a store that helps you. It's really the search in a website that helps you find that. And you're going to go, I've determined I'm not going back to the big box retailer ever unless it's not carried in my local hardware store, because I can get in and out and I can get the help that I need and I can place and make that order and be happy. Well, that kind of leads us into the story of Zanders, because that's really what their story is all about. And there were two factors in that story. One was when I walked into that big box retailer, it took me a while to get any kind of help. And then once I got help, the help was pretty useless. It was showing me an aisle with about 10,000 of that same item on it and no further help as to how to get there. First, a little bit of background on these guys. It's a sporting goods distributor, but it's really focused primarily in the gun industry. So it's guns, accessories around guns, accessories around camping and hiking and those kinds of things. They've got about 30,000 dealers and about 53,000 SKUs around the country that they serve. They're one of the largest in their industry, one of the top 3 in the United States, and they have a tremendous amount of volume in terms of daily traffic to their website and also direct through their APIs. When we got there, this was sort of the situation. They had a number of hand-coded, very customized APIs into their ERP system. They connected that up both directly to their customers as well as through Magento into their eCommerce. Their eCommerce was very, very slow. It was still running on Magento 1.6, and it was also very, very limited in terms of what data was available, because the only data that could be shared was the data that was stored and kept in Elliott. Elliott is an older sort of legacy AS400 system that had very limited amounts of data available. So descriptions were limited, digital assets were limited, everything around that was really limited. And of course, they had no PIM and obviously no way to build relationships between products. So we actually had to work with them in sort of a phased-in manner in order to bring them from where they were to where they wanted to go. So the first thing that we did was we deployed a PIM solution to assist and enable them with the tools that they need in order to create more data, more information around their products, in order to be able to have more search phrases, search words that then could link to a product. We had to integrate that into both their Magento and their Elliott ERP system on the back end. And then we had to be able to go in and we had to create a situation where we could analyze all of the things that actually happen with their shopping cart. While that says abandonment, it's actually much, much more than that. We did an analysis of how long people stay on their website. We did an analysis of what it is that they actually put into those search phrases. We did an analysis of how long it takes to get that information back. We did analysis of if they buy a particular product, what other products that are unique to that, for instance, cases, ammo, other associated things, are they purchasing alongside that? And then, of course, finally, we moved and created that entire environment for their new website, still in Magento 1.6, however, on a new website. there were a couple of things that happened when we did that, and then I'll go back and talk about phase two. The first thing that happened is that their marketing team suddenly had the ability to describe and to show their products much more fully, including things like 360-degree images, including things like extended descriptions, including things like what are the additional things that when you purchase this particular product, you may want to purchase alongside it. So some related things right there in the product description. And that was a good start. We also improved the speed as much as it could be improved in their old Magento environment, but significantly enough that it had a big impact in terms of customer satisfaction. We then launched into phase two. And what we did in phase two, and guys, it looks like I'm getting a note that I lost you again. Are you still there?
Still here.
Still here. Okay, sorry. I occasionally get this little thing that pops up here on my screen that says my internet is having a problem, and I just wanted to make sure I was still live. Okay. So what we did in phase two is we actually upgraded the product to Magento 2. We also created a mobile theme and a mobile app, and this is something that Rob had just mentioned. Many of the folks that are the dealers like to be able to walk around their store, and as they're walking around their store and shop and see what it is that they're missing, they can enter that directly from a mobile app. And then finally, the biggest item in this that we worked on in phase two is the related and replacement capabilities, which I actually include in my mind as part of being able to do advanced and predictive search and other search related items. Related and replacement capabilities is the ability that at the point where I'm saying I'm going to purchase 3 or 4 of these handguns, I automatically have generated, based on the things that other people have done in the past, I have generated a page that says, well, these are your top, let's say that's a handgun. These are your top potential holsters. This is your best ammo, second best ammo, and third best ammo to go along with that. This is a cleaning kit that's great for that particular gun. So all of the things that are sort of ancillary to that. The replacement part of that is, gee, we don't have that. Before that, if we don't have that, guess what the customer does? Well, we jump off and we go to the next distributor who hopefully has that or may have that, and we order from them. No, now it doesn't say we don't have that. Now it says this is on back order. However, if you want it right away, here's a similar gun or a similar tool or a similar, because they sell everything, a similar piece of clothing. So in short, all of a sudden, you're capturing traffic that otherwise is leaving you, and you're keeping it with you, and having them continue on your website. And that's what we did in phase two. And as we did that, we saw another significant uptick in revenue in particular. We started working with these folks about 2 years ago. Revenue since that time has actually increased dramatically, and we'll talk about that here after we talk about phase three. So once we were done with that, we said, okay, now we need to make it the most performant site out there in your industry. So already with the improvement in moving it to Magento 2, a significant performance enhancement had occurred. And we have to think about the fact that they had a very, very slow site at one point. So this made a huge impact on customers. We then decided we were going to move that website to the AWS cloud. And by doing that, we were going to create the auto-scaling capabilities required in order for them really to be able to scale as users scale, because they have very high peaks and some very low valleys in terms of when people come on, how much they order, and most importantly, how many simultaneous orders might occur, and large orders. Oftentimes, their orders are in the 7 figures on individual orders. We then also went in and began developing the search, and particularly the predictive search capabilities. So there's layers, or what I would call individual pieces to that search capability. The first one we've already talked a little bit about, and that first piece of it is really the ability to use whatever analytics you already have inside of your company, and that in their case came in 2 ways. It came from analytics we were able to gather from their historic website as to what people were doing, when they were doing it, and what they were looking for. But the second piece actually came from their sales organization. So they have some people that have been with their company since the 1970s. They have been aware of everything that everybody has bought for years and years and years. They have a ton of institutional knowledge trapped inside of those people within their organization about what people really want when they put a specific search phrase into the search engine, about how that can be divided into classes and groups and categories, about what are all of the different attributes that you might want to be able to sort that by, about what the related and replacement items actually are that could work with that. And so as we developed their search capabilities, it became really a partnership, an alliance between our 2 companies to go in there and to uncover all of these things that historically, if one of these guys left, he walked out with quite a bit of knowledge. But now we were able to capture that, and we were able to incorporate it, A, into the PIM data that was being collected, as you do with the Perfion solution. We were able to, B, incorporate it into not just what you could search for, but then also the order and the dynamic way in which you would display that when you searched for it. So where historically somebody could have put in, and we actually had examples of this, where somebody would put in a search phrase that should return, as an example again, a handgun, and instead it returned a whole bunch of accessories, and you had to go to the 3rd or 4th page before the first handgun even showed up for that particular search phrase. Well, when you do that, the people don't stay. They've already moved on. Doesn't mean they didn't buy anything. They probably searched for some other things they needed there, but that particular piece of the sale, that particular piece, that went to another distributor that potentially had a better search where they could find it quicker. Well, nobody has a better search anymore. The other thing historically that was problematic in the search capabilities was this delay, or this time that Rob talked about, where you see the little spinner going and you're waiting as the product thinks. So we put some search optimization techniques and tools into place. Again, now that we knew what a particular search meant, we were able to code some things to allow that spinning wheel to virtually become non-existent. And the return on the searches is instantaneous. It's literally sub-second in terms of what happens there. So when we talk about advanced predictive search capabilities, when we talk about that, particularly in this case, we're just scratching the surface. And that's why I wrote here phase 1, right? Phase 1 is really just taking the institutional knowledge and putting it in there. But guess what? There's underlying analytics in place now underneath all of this search that is tracking in real time what are customers actually doing. What are they, and automating that process. What are they looking for? Did they find it? What percentage of the time did they find it on this phrase? And by finding it, that means they put it in their basket and they went on. Or by not finding it, they didn't put it in their basket. Or worse, they didn't even click on any of the results, which means we actually have a mismatch between what's being searched and what folks are looking for. And as we automate that and we get these reports, we can then apply AI engines to those reports. And of course, this is a long-term process, but over the course of, initially a year or two, but over time, 3 to 5 years, this thing becomes a self-improving, self-capable site to continually improve what the search result is that a customer gets, and to hone in more and more on what each individual customer is actually looking for. In short, it becomes that sales associate, because as I type in an attribute, or I type in a phrase, or I type in anything, it's learned that more than likely what I'm looking for is actually this particular screw for this particular vent cover. And it can tell me exactly where it is on a website with 53,000 products that I would otherwise potentially get lost in. So this is just an example of that. So as we take a look at this, we're looking at binoculars in this particular case. We've put in a search. We've looked for particular binoculars. In this case, or in all cases actually on their website, we hide out-of-stock items. However, at any point in time, they can click here and actually bring those out-of-stock items in as well, because they do get an awful lot of dealers that are okay with ordering the out-of-stock items. It's just that's not the first thing that we want to show when they get there. As you look over on your left-hand side, and I didn't even know this had a name, I think of it as categories. Rob gave it a name that I've now forgotten already, but you have this name, this sidebar to help you further refine this particular search. So I found the binoculars that I put in, and now I'm going to go through and I want to reduce my search by color, by finish, by manufacturer. I want to reduce it by the magnification power, the materials, all of these things that I have rich access to because they exist inside of my PIM, and that I know because of the way that I've built out my search engine with the institutional and the knowledge from analytics that I've gathered, that these are all of the ways that folks are going to, in fact, search for this particular type of item that I sell on my website. So the important thing then is that we need to be thinking in terms of what does that mean from a results point of view, right? What did that mean to Zanders? Well, in Zanders' case, in 2 years, there's been a threefold increase in revenue from the time that we started, and 99% of their revenue comes through the website and through the APIs, both of which are run off of this same system. So a threefold increase in revenue, and very little of their traffic is done by phone order. A 35% reduction in time associated with product management. So historically, they had to pull this data into directly Magento. Magento gave them very limited capabilities, but very hard to use capabilities to make some changes inside Magento itself to the data that was coming out of the Elliott system. And so what they were now able to do was pull it directly into the PIM system, and using the PIM system like Perfion, they were able to make updates, make changes. They were able to add descriptions. They were able to add 360-degree images. They were able to add other images. They were able to print off spec sheets for customers that may need spec sheets in order to get an even tighter view of the product, or to have it on hand when their customers walk into their shops. So there's a tremendous amount of capability that was delivered, but also what they found out was their marketing team was spending 35% less time doing all of these things. So they were doing more, and they were doing it in less time because it's a simple drag and drop, point and click user interface that any user can learn how to use. Page load speeds went from 5 to 10 seconds. I told you guys earlier that they had really, really bad page load speeds when we began, and I meant it. And they've dropped to sub-0 second response times. Search abandonment. So there's two kinds of abandonment that happen. One was search abandonment, one was shopping cart abandonment. Now, in their case, it was actually fairly low to begin with on the search abandonment and on the shopping cart abandonment site, mostly because they have a fairly loyal customer clientele. However, in spite of that, there was improvement with both of those, and a not insignificant improvement. Now, the last phase, this advanced predictive search, was really just deployed and went live about 20 days ago. So we expect that search abandonment number, we really believe that's going to hit somewhere between 30 and 40% when it's all said and done. And the reason is very simple. When people abandon the shopping cart, it's because they can't find what they were looking for, or they were pointed in an aisle, as I was, with 10,000 similar items, and they simply don't have the time to sort through it. Now, the stronger your relationship with the customer, the more they'll be willing to put up with that. But most customers are going to walk down to the hardware store and get the screw where they can find it in a much, much faster time. And that's really what I wanted to share about Zanders.